生き返れ。夢中。
There's this avant-garde thing they have you watch in film school called wavelength, which is meant to showcase the least amount of action possible for something to still be considered a moving picture. It's less about entertainment and more about getting you to think about how visual storytelling works. The 6-part OVA Fooly Cooly achieves a similar effect in just about the exact opposite way. It often seems to be testing how many disparate images can be disgorged in rapid succession and have a human mind still be able to comprehend what it's seeing. Turns out, it's a lot, because for all the shambolic editing and deliberately baffling style shifts, there is a cogent story to Fooly Cooly. It's often easy to lose the thread amid the robots, gratuitous 3D turnarounds, and the equally gratuitous sex, but there is a thread, and keeping a hold of it is well worth expending the grip strength. You just have to let the madness wash over and around you, like waterfall meditation. So allow me to attempt, as best I can, to explain why Fooly Cooly is worth your time. Unless you already know about it, in which case, let's imbibe the memories together like sweetie core. Sort of an indirect kiss. Beneath the veneer of madness, Fooly Cooly is a timeless tale of growing up and contending with changes in life. The term that always comes up is coming of age, and at least a third of those words is accurate. And yeah, it is, put simply, a story about growing up, having complicated feelings with no mental framework for how to deal with them, coping with shifting and maturing tastes and interests, realizing the adults of the world aren't necessarily the most reliable or mature, that they are often ill-equipped to confer worldly wisdom upon their hapless progeny.
中身の成長してないバカ大人め。
Not that they're all bad, many are trying their best with the limited resources they themselves had in their own twisting journey to maturity. And then their car gets eaten by a robot. And I think we can all relate to that feeling. It's conveyed in what might be best described as a frantic and bewildering directorial fugue state. Even the title deliberately conveys as little actual meaning as possible, yet it's a perfectly fitting one. Much like the series itself, it's not exactly a sex thing, but it might be kind of sex thing adjacent? And I don't know. The show puts a manic little bow on the emotional maturation process. There is, at the very least, sexual frustration, bullying, ennui, and advancing into the sour and spicy flavoring of adulthood. Poor kids are learning the truth that Nier Automata puts so elegantly. Being alive is pretty much a constant state of embarrassment. There's a lot of getting jealous for irrational reasons, which is just another form of worrying about how things reflect on you when they realistically have nothing to do with you at all. Surviving into adulthood is all about coming out of that narcissistic cocoon as a blossoming butterfly of maturity. And, of course, the perennial experience of losing respect for your heroes. And having a crush on a robot. And rehydrating your dad. This is a weird show, right? The fact that it's not just nonsense for nonsense's sake definitely makes it the philosopher king of the early Adult Swim days. But let's back up. The story follows average school kid Naoda, who lives in his small, boring hometown, a place of total unremarkable mundanity save for the surreal giant steam iron looming in the distance. It's there for a reason though, trust me. It starts as so many shonen slice-of-life stories do, with Naoda getting run over by a wacky ingenue riding a Vespa scooter, who proceeds to beat him with a bass guitar and relentlessly stalk him after providing vociferous mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. This is all amid an already very confusing time spent, as is habitual wont, loitering about with an older high school girl who may have either dated Naoda's older brother or had a fangirlish unrequited preoccupation with him after he saved her from a fire. Either way, her habit of cuddling with him seems to be a means of pulling a psychology, as Ray Smuckles put it. Now, at this point, you might expect this to be a sub-average guy inexplicably agglutinates female attention anime trope, or at least sexy lady lives with young boy for no reason, especially after Wasp Woman moves in with Naoda as his family's new housekeeper. But trust me, you don't know where this is going. These characters tend to be less kawaii and more ennui, if you know what I mean. You don't? Well, you know, that's fine. So anyway, Naoda's head starts sprouting giant robots, Hera style, baby. I mean, that's it. That's where it goes. A moment ago, he was stressing about sharing a soda with a girl because it sort of constitutes an indirect kiss. Now he's getting eaten by a TV head machine man so they can fuse and harness a godlike power to fend off the inventions of medical mechanica, which may or may not be a front for an alien takeover. And this is all just from the first immaculately paced episode. It's hard to contextualize all this without going into a full event-by-event synopsis, but that's not the point of this video. The point is just to sell you on the show's radness, son! Over the course of the next 5 episodes, we become privy to ever more of the goings-on in the wacky little town of Mabase. His not-girlfriend Mamimi may be an arsonist, his classmate Inamori's father, the mayor, is caught in an affair with his secretary, prompting her to rig a school play and accidentally absorb a Lovecraftian hell monster from Naoda's head. You know, that old cliche. The Ninamori episode in particular has one of the most madcap moments when her hideous transformation leads to a wacky chase sequence through the school, accompanied by Comedian's Gallop by Dmitry Kabalevsky, which I always thought was just an apt, silly music choice, but apparently it's a common piece to accompany Japanese school sports festivals. Another pointed cultural reference which may be somewhat more baffling to the uninitiated is that Ninamori in these scenes is wearing the fairly infamous Petari Bloomer uniform. You know, those bikini-like shorts that frequently appear in anime. Those things got phased out sometime during the 90s for, pretty obvious reasons. You know, whatever benefit Olympians got for them probably didn't apply to middle school athletes. They were probably a pervert's delight, as evidenced by the fact that they live on pretty much solely in anime and other media as a sort of fetishy bunyip. And while Fooly Cooly is generally pretty smart about using mature themes in ways that are actually mature, this might be their only lapse into, you know, typical anime shit. The point in bringing all this up was to illustrate how utterly rooted Fooly Cooly is in Japanese cultural touchstones, and how despite the formidable culture gap it manages to tell a relatable story replete with satisfying character development. There's even a baseball episode! Now when it comes to character developments, one must mention the scenes with Naoda and Mamimi, which eventually become scenes with just Mamimi. She definitely has the most satisfying little arc for me. She starts out being, in a word, aimless. She doesn't even really get why this lame-ass kid hangs out with her. She basically just uses him as a fucker's therapist. She takes no real romantic or physical interest in him, as exhibited when she easily replaces him with a cat named Naoda. And later, a voracious robot she also names Naoda, which she inadvertently raises into a kaiju by feeding it the cell phones and scooters of the girls who bullied her. Oh, youthful folly. This all confuses the hell out of Naoda, as you may well imagine. The aromantic physical relationship, not the growing robot. He seems strangely able to clock that situation. More importantly, when he starts to exhibit some agency and try to direct the relationship, it freaks her out. I mean, the robot attacks certainly don't help, although actually maybe they do, because by the end of the bedlam it seems like she's ready to move on and try. At what? It's not certain. Something. Anything. But it's nice to see her take a first step. I mean, cathartic robo-vengeance sure didn't work out. Yep, everyone does some growing up here. Except maybe this guy. So that's Fooly Cooly, the simple story of a lady who either wants to eat a space god or, like, fuck it? Still not sure, to be honest. I don't know. So with baseball, sports day, curry for kids, the paramount terror of arson, one impressive thing about Fooly Cooly is how it manages to tell a relatable story despite the culture gap and the comedic tone, which is notoriously hard to export. Say it's because there's a lot of similar Bushu and right there. Bushu, three strokes, radicals. Strike three!